Today we're gonna plant the 2,000-gallon aquarium. No big deal though, right? I mean, I'm not the first person to plant a big aquarium, but although this is 2,000 gallons, it's unusually big for a home aquarist. But the situation here is pretty unique because this tank is already stocked with large Asian arowana and freshwater stingrays. And the plan of attack is actually pretty simple. Shut off all of the electrical equipment to the aquarium, drain half of the water or maybe a little bit more, and then, as they say, kind of just dive right in. What happens if one of them does sting me? No, I know that's going to be a question. Well, what will happen is a stinger much like this one will be stabbed into my foot or ankle or leg or wherever they get me. It could potentially break off in place or come out completely or maybe just be a clean stab. That might hurt, but it's the venom they inject that causes excruciatingly burning pain. To top it off, there is no anti-venom for stingray venom. You have to take your cut or injury and put it under hot water, as hot as you can bear, to hopefully coagulate the venom and stop it from spreading. From there, deal with the pain for the next 24 to 48 hours and keep it clean so it doesn't get infected. Dangerous, yes. Irresponsible, no. I have several years of experience working with rays and having them in my care. I feel extremely confident being outside of the tank as well as inside of the aquarium. I've said it many times in the past. These guys are like little curious puppy dogs. We just have to respect their space. We can't spook them, and of course, don't hurt them. They're not there to attack me. They're only there to protect themselves if they have to. At least it's gonna be warm. Just gotta stay calm, move slowly, start planting the plants, stick to the plant. Hello, Mr. Arowana. So some of the plants I'm going to be using, we're starting off with basic Java moss. This is going to cover a lot of the top and this branch over here. I'm going to be attaching it with some simple sewing thread, just tying it right on. It comes in a bunch of, little mats, so it should be relatively simple. I don't want to stay still for too long with my feet. The rays are a curious animal. They will come and explore what I'm doing. And I don't want to be sitting here not moving my feet at all, only to, spook them when I do move. So this is just a very thin thread. It's going to eventually dissolve in the water to be perfectly fine. Specifically, it's Taxiphyllum barberi, or more commonly known as simply Java moss. I have 10 portions of that. What you doing, Frank? Java moss attached relatively easily. I just used some sewing thread to kind of tie it along the branches. I tied it along this branch and then capped off a couple of the pieces over here to kind of get rid of that cut off piece so it looks more natural. And then just a little tuft here in the middle, just kind of even it all out. I think this is exactly what I was looking for. Now on to some Microsorrel Trident. This stuff is a rhizome plant, meaning that it doesn't necessarily need to go pushed into the substrate. It doesn't need to have a planted tank soil. It can all be attached to the wood and the roots will attach to it. That's one of the benefits of rhizome plants. And in fact, the rest of these plants are being attached to the wood. Specifically, it's Microsorrel, Pteropus, Trident. I have about 12 portions of this plant. Now the Microsorrel narrow. This is also a Pteropus, but it's the narrow version. Now the difference between the narrow and the Trident is the Trident has a little bit thinner leaves, but if you look at the end, instead of tapering off, it kind of forms a little Trident. It's tasting me. A lot of the plants have been added to the front, but we can't really forget the back of the tank either. Now, some Anubias Nana. We're gonna try to focus on putting this near the top of the tank. Anubias. This is Anubias Nana. I've got about 10 portions of this. Now the Anubias barteri. We have some more Anubias, but this is Anubias barteri. Basically, these are pretty much the same plant. The leaves are pretty similar, but the biggest difference is obviously the size. This one will grow larger stems and obviously larger leaves, and not as many, where the Nana grows far more, but it stays much smaller. We're now on to the very next day. Tank is filled back up, and I have to admit right off the bat, I'm absolutely in love with the end result. I can only imagine what this tank is going to look like when the plants truly take off and really fill the tank out. I will admit though, I was a little bit worried about the rays potentially ripping some of the plants out, maybe the flow in the aquarium, since there's a lot of flow in this tank, would potentially blow some of the plants off because some of them are not secured that well. But given the fact that there's so many crevices in this wood, a lot of these plants are simply, especially the Anubias, as well as some of the different species of the Java fern, are pushed into the crevices, into little cracks and holes. They're in there quite securely, while others are tied with some sewing thread. So end result though, I think everything is in there quite nicely. I do like the end result. The middle of the tank, there's a lot of shadow there and, a lot of overhang from the wood, so I wasn't really able to put much plants there simply because they'll most likely die. I wasn't entirely sure, so I did add a couple to test it out. If those are successful, I'll go ahead and I'll add a lot more to the tank. It does seem like the fish are more active in the tank now. I'm not sure if I'm just imagining things or if they're just hungry because I didn't feed them yesterday, but I really enjoy seeing the rays and the arowana and even the flower horn kind of explore the tank, and the plants really finish this tank off. And some of you might be wondering, why no plants in the substrate? Answer to that is simple. This is just a sand. It offers no nutritional value. Even if I did have a planted tank substrate, the rays would tear it apart in a day, especially in a few months or even a couple of years when they grow to massive proportions. They're going to just absolutely make a mess of any tank, any plants, planted in the substrate at all. What's up, Frank? One of my favorite moments of planting the aquarium is how majestic the arowana was with me in the tank, constantly swimming with me, coming over, brushing up against my legs. He was clearly doing it on purpose because this is a big aquarium. He has so many other places he could go, but he was just, so attentive to me and so curious, yet so gentle with me. It was a really interesting experience, and I hope someday that maybe we can get in the tank, maybe put on a snorkel and kind of, enjoy the tank with them. Even Frank swam around my feet a lot. In fact, he spent a lot of time in between my legs. I thought that was hilarious. And the rays kind of left me alone. I just made sure I stayed active and I didn't stay in one spot. This took about an hour and a half to 2 hours to complete. And, not being able to get out of the tank and into the tank, out of the tank, to kind of take a step back and see what it looks like, was probably the only downside to doing this. However, I think ultimately it turned out great, and I'm dying to see what you guys think about it. So let me know in the comment section below. Give me some kind of feedback. I need it. I need to hear what you guys think. We're in this together. So over 40 plants, 5 different species were used, a couple species of Anubias, a couple species of Java fern, and of course Java moss. I really wanted to get away from the typical Java fern you're used to seeing and use a couple of different species that I find don't really give the appearance of Java fern and can really show you a few alternatives to plants that do well on decorations, rocks, wood, and don't need to be put in a substrate. So if you ever wanted to add live plants to your aquarium, these are some options, and that's kind of something I wanted to focus on, is not just show you something really interesting and inspiring, but give you some ideas that you can use today and install into your own aquariums. And I know I'm gonna get asked, where did the plants come from? Of course, they came from my local fish store, One Fish, Two Fish. In fact, he now sells them online, so I don't have to travel to the store, and he just ships them to my door. I'll leave a link to his website in the description below for all my Canadian viewers that wanna get some great, affordable and healthy plants as well. As for the lighting, well, you guys know that Ecotech Marine is one of the main sponsors out here in the aquarium gallery, along with Custom Aquariums. When Ecotech Marine asked me what I was doing for lighting on the 2000, I kind of gave some ideas and they're like, let us take care of this. They went ahead and turned a couple of their Ecotech Radion G4 lights into the freshwater version. These are the XR30s. They put out almost 200 watts of lighting, are fan cooled, and extremely quiet. But here's where it gets interesting. Right now I'm only using 20% of the wattage on a 2,000 gallon aquarium, and I'm only using 2 lights. With that said, what I'm entirely interested in and what completely blew my mind is the ability to control absolutely every aspect of the lights. I'm not gonna get into it today, but when I get more well-versed with their mobile app as well as their dashboard that you can use on your desktop, I'm going to show you guys some incredible things you can do with this. For now, I'll just leave a link to their website in the description below. You can check it out on your own. And just to be clear, because I know I'm going to be asked, these are not the types of lights that I'm going to be using on the racking system. For that, we have something very special. I also need to take the lights and install the power cords up through the ceilings. Right now they're just kind of hanging. I know it's sloppy right now, but I'm going to make this look really cool once the power and everything's going up through the ceiling. It'll just be 2 pendant lights. It's gonna look very clean. Ultimately though, I'm extremely happy with this tank. I think moving forward, this is going to change the entire dynamic of the tank. I think it's going to be even more interesting to see how the plants do in this tank, because in my Stingray and Asian Arowana tanks, I keep nutrient levels quite low, but the plant selection is slow growers and they don't need a ton of nutrients, and I do have the ability to give them as much light as I need. So again, it's going to be pretty interesting to see what happens with the plants over the next couple of months. With the 2,000 gallon aquarium now completed, how about we move on to the 375 that's now in the gallery.